Kia ora koutou, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. For those of you that are returning, welcome back. For those of you that are new, hopefully you enjoy this. Just stay with us today. It's just me today. Tana is not feeling well, so we wish he all the best as he gets better. And as always, before we introduce our guest, a bit of a monologue. What have I been thinking since our last podcast? The last podcast I spoke about Live Fully, Die Empty was something that really resonated with me from our last speaker. But then after that, we also had Iman, who then spoke about being a third culture kid or a third culture person. And that really blew my mind because that's something that I've been struggling with as well with myself. And I think that's something we might bring up in today's episode as well. But being a third culture person in a country that, so for those of you that have been following me for a while, grew up in Zimbabwe. My dad is from India. My dad is from Africa. My mom is from Zimbabwe. Sorry, my dad is from Zimbabwe. My mom is from India. I'm born in Zimbabwe. Went to University of South Africa. Now live in New Zealand. Crazy cultural identity. Trying to pick up Te Maori. Living the Pacific culture. All crazy. So as I try and navigate that, I'm just trying to pick up the best and the worst of all the cultures, because when we say pick up the best, without the best you don't understand the worst, and without the worst you don't understand the best. So trying to navigate that has been a really interesting story for me. And it's been really interesting for me because in my current workspace, I do a lot of work in the Te Aranui aura space, and it's a really interesting place for me as I have people that are that identify as Maori, as Pacifica, as Pakeha, as Australian, as a whole range. So trying to navigate that space has been really interesting for me. And there's no good or bad, it's just learning that space there, which is a struggle sometimes, but that's the reality of living in a country in such a diverse place where, our parents have got to sacrifice for us to be where we are. So yeah, that's my thinking over the last week or so. I think it's pretty good, a good segue into our guest today. Our guest today is someone that I have been following for a long time. For those of you that know me, I follow people on LinkedIn, and I think LinkedIn is a fantastic space. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, go and get one. And this person has come up my radar many, many, many times. And it's been someone that we've been trying to get onto the podcast for a while. But there's always a time and a place when people come onto a podcast, and this is probably the right time for this person to come with the podcast. Why this person here? Well, because in my eyes, it's someone that has been really inspirational in what they do. They have been breaking barriers. They have been stepping up. They have been leading. They have not been afraid to speak their voice because of where they come from, who they are, but also not letting them stop them, allowing them to grow people and take people along the journey as opposed to putting along the side, which has been really inspirational for me to watch as someone from the sidelines. So it is my pleasure and our privilege on the Basket of Knowledge to invite Leilani. Welcome to Basket of Knowledge.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you so much, Prajesh and team, for having me. Awesome and privileged to be here. Finally, thank you.
Yeah, finally. No, I think all those accolades are well earned, and you'll see why as we go through the episode. Leilani, who are you? So people who know nothing about you, who is Leilani today on the 29th of April?
Cool. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Whawhitai mo le awanoa, tā alofa ma lole soifua o tō uma wa awhawhio mai, e tātou whaafoi le whaawhitai le tātou tamā I le langi mo lona alofa. Tā alofa ma lole soifua everyone o lo'u ingoa o Leilani Faaiuaso. First and foremost, a daughter and child of God from the villages of Falealupo, Salelolonga, Leolumuenga, Malua Tuanu'u, and I'm also part Chinese. My Ainga's migrant journey has always been in search of better opportunities. My grandparents all migrated from Samoa to New Zealand in the 1960s, all eventually settling in Palmerston North, and my parents moved up to Auckland in 1999. So I am a third generation New Zealand-born Samoan. I grew up in Manurewa, South Auckland, and moved to Palmerston North with my ainga in 2021, and recently moved back to Auckland this year. I recently completed my double degree, a Bachelor of Business majoring in Management and a Bachelor of Arts majoring in Psychology at Massey University in Palmerston North, and I'm graduating next week. Very excited. I now work at Deloitte as an analyst in technology and transformation, specifically in the operations and industry solutions team, specializing in the health industry. Standing on the shoulders of my giants, I'm fearlessly ambitious and serving now for a better tomorrow. And this year, I'm serving as a Rangatahi Leadership Opportunities Database Ambassador, a Pacifica Fusion Committee member, an Asia New Zealand Foundation Leadership Network member, and a YWCA Y25 judge. But all encompassing the Samoan proverb, o le ala i le pule o le tautua, pathway through to leadership is through service. So that's a bit about me.
What a great summary about who you are at this point in time. And, we're going to navigate that whole conversation through all those different roles that you have had. But I think let's go back to the origin story. We love an origin story. So, you spoke about being born in Auckland, going to Palmerston North. But let's talk about young Leilani growing up in Auckland. If I said to her, hey, in 2025, this is what you're going to be doing, what would you have said to me given where you were growing up?
I think I was never limited in the vision of what I could become and where I grew up. I was really grateful to have amazing parents who really taught me confidence and curiosity from the get-go. And that if I don't ask questions, I don't know. And if I'm not confident, then you need to step it up and always try your best in everything that you do. So I think little Leilani always had big hopes and ambitions and aspirations. Never would it have been in corporate, I don't think, because corporate wasn't a thing that I knew back then. I think a lot of us, where I grew up, corporate seems like a distant aspiration or one that's not common in our environment. So I think I'm where I thought I would be, but in terms of my career, it's so different. But I'm glad that I ended up here for this season.
Beautiful. And I spoke about the very specifically about where you grew up because I think what we have to realize is our environment sometimes, well, actually all the time, has a very, very powerful lens on what we have as opportunities. And you said yourself, at that time you had no idea the call would be for you. I think it's really awesome that you have broken that and actually went, this is a pretty cool space for me to be at in this season here. And I guess that's a narrative that lots of young people and lots of people don't think about that actually just because where they're born doesn't dictate where they have to end up. It also doesn't mean they have to stay in that space. It just means that, hey, there's opportunities, which is really cool that you mentioned that there. But I guess, as I was doing my research for you, I noticed that there was a big change for you as you got a scholarship to go to St. Cuthbert's, and this is when your world started changing just a little bit for you.
Yes, it did. And I think, growing up in Manurewa, I went to an amazing school, Manurewa Central School, and I had amazing teachers. And that opportunity, the scholarship came from my auntie at the time, and she basically gave my mum a board and was like, look at all these schools, which one, they provide scholarships for Pacific and Māori. And mum just looked at St. Cuthbert's and was like, cool, we'll try that one. And mum did a lot of the hard work. And I was really blessed to have such a supportive family and also teachers. My deputy principal, Miss Lindsay, also helped me prepare for the whole interview process and wrote an amazing reference letter that is the best one I've ever had to this day. And so, yeah, it was an opportunity that came up through connections, and I was really blessed to have those, but one that I didn't go in alone, but had a whole village behind me supporting me, and that's carried through in all the opportunities that I have today. But St. Cuthbert's was a huge life changer, very blessed and grateful to have been in such an amazing space, educationally, but also personally, just seeing what privileges and opportunities that we have in private education spaces, and making the most of all of those opportunities. So there were so many doors that were open that I definitely probably wouldn't have been able to open on my own. And very grateful again to have my family supporting me all the way through because as much as it was a great space for education, it is a huge change from South Auckland to Central Auckland. So navigating those cultural changes and identities that we talk about was really challenging as a young Samoan woman. And when I say young, I mean like intermediate school young. And those challenges are tough at any age, but being exposed to cultural differences and challenges at a very young age, I feel is really, really challenging.
And how did you navigate that? And I asked that because in our last podcast we spoke about so our last guest is of Arab descent, and she spoke about she came to New Zealand and tried to become Kiwi. So she was like, I'm not gonna identify with my Arab roots because I need to fit in. up to a certain point. Did you go through the same battle or kind of thought process, or were you proudly Samoan? Actually, this is who I am. And I asked that because lots of people go through that every single day.
Yeah, no, it's a valid question. I think I always went through a challenge of embracing my culture, especially at that young age at St. Cuthbert's, mainly because you go from a school where brown kids is the majority to a school where literally in year seven there were only four brown girls, for Māori and Pacific in the whole year group, and that was it. And it was a girls only school. I feel like co-ed schools you kind of get a bit of a chill vibe. Whereas girls' schools, it's a bit more intense and there's a lot of emotions and ups and downs that come with it. And so, yeah, when I initially went in, I think the first biggest um, moment that hit me that I was different was when we were asked, like, how do you get to school? Raise your hand if you drive the car, and everyone raised their hand. And then it was like, oh, raise your hand if you catch a train. And it was me and the other brown girl in the class that raised our hand, and it was only us. And that kind of highlighted to me, like, okay, there's things that I do that people don't, there's things that I understand that people don't. So initially I had this real big disassociation from my culture, not a conscious choice, but I think it was more trying to fit in. And because you want to belong and you want to feel safe and you want to feel like others want to be your friend too. And I had amazing friends all throughout, but that was really challenging. And then I think as I got to high school, I started to notice that, there were a lot of us that were trying to embrace our culture through like polyfest and cultural groups, which was awesome, but that also came with each of our own individual challenges and trying to grapple with embracing our culture, but fitting into a school where there weren't many of us. But by the end of it, there were around 40 Māori and Pacific girls. So there's a real strong Māori and Pacific culture and group at St. Cuthbert's now, which is awesome to see. And I think that ending off, I was definitely a bit more grounded, but not as grounded as I was until I moved to Palmerston North. So, yeah, I would say all throughout it really, really struggled. It wasn't something that I would try to intentionally tackle, but something that I was definitely aware of and struggled to try and change because the environment, like you said, was a huge influence in shaping who I am and how I identified myself as a young Samoan woman.
And I love that because, as you mentioned there, your norm is your norm in your world. Catching the train is just normal. This is what I do, and you think that everyone does that there. And it's really funny how in life, when people highlight stuff, you go, even as an adult, you go, oh, wow, this is not the norm. But because you live in a world where your norm is your norm, it's so crazy. And sometimes it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the way the world is. And too many times people start pointing fingers and say that's good and that's bad, but actually, it's not good or bad. It's just life, and then you decide how you want to take that. And what I love about your story is this is how you took it, because your talk at TEDx, what inspired that talk? Because it's a very powerful talk and it's really quite a moving talk there. Actually, if we go back, what made you want to talk, and then the topic?
Yes, thank you. My public speaking journey, I would say, was started on a high and then for some reason it just crashed down. And then I tried to go into the TEDx talk, wanting to improve my public speaking skills. My parents, my grandparents are all amazing speakers and amazing leaders in their own ways. And I was always really inspired by the way that they would lead and communicate with others, and took that on very at a very young age. I think as the oldest, but also as one who wanted to take up leadership opportunities. And so, did speeches in primary school, loved it, excelled in it, sang in public places, loved singing and loved in culture and arts and creative things. And then it kind of got to university and I would start speaking, and there was this nervousness or anxiety that would come over me where I would literally be physically shaking from head to toe. And there wasn't a specific environment or time. It would just be like random. It could be in a uni class, it could be in a board meeting, it could be speaking in front of people on a panel. And so I started noticing there was this really bad pattern of anxiety, I guess, that was starting to really challenge my public speaking. But it was always something that I'd been really passionate about. And so in that year that I did the TEDx talk, I was like, you know what? Why not this opportunity? And I was really blessed to have Arthi reach out to me and say, sis, like, I think it'd be really awesome. And so that gave me an extra boost of encouragement that if there was ever an opportunity to overcome public speaking, it would be a TED talk. So yeah, that's how I got into it or wanted to do it.
And I love that. I love that how you acknowledge the fact that you were great at it, and then life happens, and you whatever for whatever reason, life goes. Actually, this is you got to. It's not happening. And the reason I say is because a lot of people think things are just natural. Things you just talk naturally, but actually life doesn't happen like that. Then it becomes a bit of a challenge. So it's really awesome that obviously you had the amazing auntie connect with you, and obviously she sees what I see in lots of different people, where people are amazing. So you get the offer, you go, cool, I'm going to give it a crack. How did you decide on your topic?
It's a funny one because it came around being really vulnerable and open about like, okay, what am I actually an expert in? And you never really think about it, I guess, like, oh, what have I experienced that I can talk about? Because often the best things that you can share are the lived experiences and the journeys that you've gone through, your lowest of lows and your highest of highs. And so initially I really wanted to talk about success and achieving success and the best way to succeed. And then they're like, oh, someone else is doing it, you have to change. And so it's like, oh, okay, what can I talk about? And then I thought, oh, you know what? Embracing my culture has always been a hard thing. And we talked about St. Cuthbert's and we talked about my family journey. And so I think reflecting on that and also my progress living in Palmerston with my family, I really connected with my grandparents and my culture more. And so I thought, let's give it a crack. And my curator, Caitlin, was amazing in helping me write out the whole piece. It saw many drafts, it saw many versions. But ultimately, like I said, it took being really vulnerable and open about my lived experience and what I wanted to share with people. And ultimately, it was that, blood quantum or where you come from or how much of the language or culture you know doesn't count. But um, you're already your culture as is. Like there's no criteria or qualification needed to be of a culture. It just takes embracing the history and the ancestry that you already stand on to be of one's culture. So that was really the inspiration and the drive behind it.
Isn't it funny if that success talk had been taken, you would have a whole different story.
I know
Yeah,
I think that was always kind of the aim, like something about success, but glad it ended up to being about embracing my culture.
yeah, which is again embracing success in a different way, in a whole different way. And I loved it. Then for those of you that haven't heard the talk, we'll put a link in the show notes so you can have a listen to the talk as well. What is it like after the talk? Because when you prepare, you're in the zone, you're doing all the drafts. What is it like when you step off the stage and now people actually go, whoa, whoa, who is this person here? And what have they said?
Yeah, and I will admit, literally the same thing happened. I was anxious, I was shaking from head to toe, I was getting breathless, and Arthur had to go like, "Sis, calm down, it's okay." I almost stood up when the item before me performed, and so that's how nervous I was. And the nerves didn't go away; they still come every time I speak. But it was such an amazing achievement. But stepping off the stage, it was an amazing achievement because we were supposed to have the actual night a month before, I think. And so having it postponed, it actually aligned with I went over to Budapest, Hungary last year and I got to perform a Samoan item. The same thing happened. I was shaking. Everyone thought that Samoan dancers shake like a leaf. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry, Samoa, but I tried my best. But again, it's just embracing opportunities and doing your best and representing who you are and where you come from. And so it kind of aligned with coming after that trip and I came back, had a bunch of events on, and then I had the TED Talk. So it was kind of a full circle moment that was well timed. And I think stepping off the stage, I felt like a real full circle moment, but also revolutionized in the sense that like here I was going into St. Cuthbert's at year seven, not ashamed, but just didn't know how to embrace my culture and be proud of it. And now here I am walking off the stage of a TED Talk, just declaring to everyone that I am Samoan and singing that to everyone and what a full circle journey that was. But also, yeah, I guess after that, it's been cool to have everyone be like, oh, she's a TEDx speaker. And it's been cool to have it on my little LinkedIn bio and just promote it because it is an awesome achievement. But I think the biggest thing was the speech itself and just being able to
Yeah.
say, yeah, I am Samoan. And that was really, really cool.
And you know what's interesting? Because I mean, I'm undergoing my own little, as I said at the start, my own little journey. But I think speaking is so powerful. And when you speak about your story, the power in those words when they come out and the reaction that people have is you don't realize that the impact of your words. Like nobody actually realizes the impact of people's words, especially in a forum like that. So, as I said before, that was probably what changed the world for you in a different way, as people saw you a little bit different. So, yes, you went to Budapest, you did cool things, but this is where you were just shining by yourself, speaking your words from your heart, which is very, very beautiful. In amongst all this here, so you're living in Auckland, you go to Auckland, and you go back to Palmy. What is that like for you returning to your roots, but but after being in Auckland where you were born? So, yeah, what is that like for you?
Yeah, I will say, having finished at St. Cuthbert's and had multiple university offers, and Massey was not on my list. It was like, why here? Why this place? But I trusted in God's plans, and I knew that, living with family, it was precious time, especially coming out of the COVID pandemic. Was really privileged to live with my mum's parents growing up in Auckland, but my dad's parents, I didn't really grow up with them. So moving down to Palmerston North, we had my mum's dad and my dad's parents. And so it was a really precious time to just get closer with my grandparents. It was really hard socially, though, to be in what I called it at the time a little city. I'm so sorry. But what I eventually learned was that they have a big heart and a big community and amazing people that do amazing things. And so the initial transition was definitely a tough one. I felt like a big fish in a small pond, but then I soon realized I was a small fish in a big pond, and that opportunities wherever I went are limitless. It was the people in the community that made it home for me.
Isn't that amazing? Wherever you go, it's the people, right? The people, and also your attitude. When your attitude shifts and changes, things start happening for you. Yeah, we speak about your family. We speak about their pet business, arts. Let's talk about that. Then, what made you choose those areas of? Was that what you wanted to do, or was it an evolution of things that you found as you went to university?
Mm. University was always a distant dream. I think pursuing education was like something that I thought would be really cool. I am the first in family to attend and I guess get a degree in my immediate family, and so that's a huge achievement. But it came from Young Enterprise, shout out Young Enterprise scheme. I did it in year 12, had a real bad failed business idea and trusted the process and went again year 13. And we did mental health hoodies during the lockdown pandemic. And that was really amazing. It did really well. I had an amazing team of girls that were super awesome, and we did an awesome job in the end. But I kind of thought, I'm good at business. I'm kind of like wanting to learn more about mental health. How can I combine the two? And of course, being the overachiever that I am, I went for a double degree and decided to go to Mass University. And it was awesome. I always recommend if you ever go to university, do a double degree. You get an extra year and an extra degree. It's so worth it because you get to explore multiple pathways. And especially a BA. People underrate a BA all the time, but let me say it is the best degree you could ever do. It teaches you critical thinking skills and to think properly, I guess, about things on your own terms rather than taking it by textbook. So that was really valuable for me. But yeah, it was always a learning opportunity. Even though I did those two degrees, it didn't stop there. I took a few politics papers within that, and I also did a summer scholarship in development studies. So that was cool. So even though I had those two pathways set for my degrees, it was never limited to just those two majors.
I love that. What I'm going to do a shout out for Young Enterprise. There's a lot of people that come to this podcast here through Young Enterprise and are doing some pretty cool things. So it's pretty awesome what their team has done and what they continue to do for young people around the country. It's really quite funny when I was working in my last role, I would always tell people to the young enterprise, they're like, but I don't care about business. I don't really care, just do it. It's not about business. It's about working with people and understanding that whole phase there. And just, yeah, it's pretty cool to hear what you've done, but also your passion in mental health and well-being, which is really, really cool. As you start navigating your study, you start getting involved in all the things, literally, we keep listing them. How did you start finding time to, you said you're studying, you are in the community, but you're getting involved in all the different things. How did you balance that there? And what is your, again, as you said at the start, you're a go-getter. Was it did it all come from you, or were people saying, "Hey, Leilani, you should try this. You should give it a crack"? Where did it come? Was it self-driven or from others?
I think bit of both. It was never just me. And again, I always honor my village because I literally could not do it without them. My family were there every step of the way. There were nights where I'd come home hungry or, nights where it was just too hard and I needed a hug. So a huge shout out to family and friends who kept me all the way through. But yeah, I've always had a knack somehow of finding resources and opportunities, which is works to my advantage. And I'm very grateful to have that skill. But I also have had many connections and people along the way that have pointed me in the right direction or given me opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So, yeah, a bit of both for sure, not just me.
And that's important to recognize, because sometimes in amongst all the success, we forget about all the people around us that actually help us get to where we want to get to, which is amazing. Um, yeah, let's talk about your involvement with McKinsey at the Leadership Forum and the NZ Futures Forum. How did you get into that, and what is that like for you as a young person?
Yes, that was an opportunity that I believe came through Massey. And it was, again, the start to my corporate journey. And it was like, oh, McKinsey Leadership Forum. And I thought, oh, this looks fancy. I can't lie, I'm a girl for bargains and I love free things. And so free flights, free accommodation seemed like a cool opportunity to travel a little. Um, I think I found McKinsey through, yeah, Massey University, but then eventually McKinsey kept reaching out to me for future opportunities, which has been really awesome to get exposure to. It was all a blur now, but back then it was the biggest thing that I could ever have hoped and dreamed for, and was really grateful to get into those spaces so early on into university too, because especially being in Palmerston North, we don't have exposure to the Big Four as much as the big city universities do. And so when I got to Tier 1 McKinsey, opportunities, I thought, oh, this is big game, this is big time. So it was really cool to be in that space.
Oh, amazing. And touching on that, you spoke about being in Palmerston North. What is it like for you as you were navigating that, and you might see some of your peers in the bigger cities getting all these other opportunities? I mean, you took them on board, but if we're being honest, when you're in a smaller place, the opportunities are not as easy to come by.
Yeah, it was really hard. And I think that was the trade-off in making the decision to Massey initially for me. Growing up in Auckland, I knew the opportunities that came with being in Auckland and just being in this place and having exposure to things nearby. You kind of have to be here to get exposure to things. And so I knew that moving away was a bit of a sacrifice, but I think nonetheless, I still had opportunities. It was hard when it came to things like consulting case clubs and things like that, where Massey University didn't necessarily have it. But again, was really blessed to have lecturers and staff and amazing village behind me who knew opportunities that I might align with and always reached out to me. So it all worked out in the end, but it definitely is hard as a young person when you see people thriving in bigger cities or other places that you're not in or don't have access to. So I think the move to digital for a lot of opportunities opens that gateway for us.
Yeah, and one of the cool things about digital is I know, was it last year or the year? It must have been last year when I saw you being really active in running your online facilitation for one of the workshops. What got you into that there? Because that looked pretty cool.
Thank you. That was off the back of the Asia Europe Foundation Young Leaders Summit. So I was one of two New Zealanders to be selected from a global pool of 4,500 applicants, which is crazy.
Wow. Wow.
But really blessed to be in that cohort. And I was off to Budapest, Hungary in October. But the basic aim was in the beginning, before the international summit, they train you on all these different topics. Then you go overseas for an in-person summit. Then you come back and you do a multiplier workshop to share what they teach you. And that's how a lot of youth summits go. So off the back of the in-person summit was a youth workshop that I ran, my first time ever facilitating. And I have to give credits to everyone who facilitates and does all the admin behind workshops because I took it all for granted as a little participant, and now I realize the hard work that goes into it. And so the aim of that was to teach young people what I wish I knew growing up, all about finding opportunities, discerning opportunities, and knowing your worth when going into it. So anything from I brought four organizations, I believe, or three, to share about their databases and the opportunities that they had. And I had the lovely Vera talking about, you can say yes to all opportunities, but not every opportunity aligns with you. So, which opportunities should you say yes to? And then the beautiful Latavia talking about knowing your worth and negotiating for paid youth opportunities. That is really important in honoring our young people's time and effort because it is just as valuable as anyone else's.
Yeah, and how did you feel? Because again, I talk about feeling quite a bit because I'm guessing that you're a heart-centered person. As you said, you're excited to run these facilitations, and for me, when I facilitate, I always think about how I feel after. The before, I don't worry about the before, it's the after, because I think about the impact that I've had or not had, whichever way it goes. What is it like for you? Because it's after you finish up and people start get connecting with you. What is that like for you?
Yeah, honestly, there were 30 participants or 30 or 40 or something from all around the world, which is really amazing. Beforehand, I was working really hard to make sure that there were people there. I was doing all the admin, and then during, I pulled in the beautiful Mary to help me facilitate because adminning and facilitating at the same time was not the go, and I knew that I probably wouldn't be able to make it. So I had amazing support from people. So grateful for that. And I think because October was a crazy month for me. I did the TED Talk, I traveled to Budapest, I helped my auntie with a wearable arts showcase, and I was doing everything. And I also had my exams for uni, and I was working still. And, there were all these different things that I was doing. And so after that, I was actually really burnt out, really exhausted, and really insecure about the results of the workshop, even though from the outset it seemed like a success. And I think that just kind of reflected how much I was pouring out into our community, which is all good and all, but there was just so much. And we have this saying that, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. And I really was trying to have it all at once, not for selfish reasons, but just trying to help people, but also help myself. And sometimes you have to take in a bit more than you can give. And so that was the burnout season, which cued my social media absence for 3 months. I just went off and became a normal girl working her retail job. And that was well needed rest. So yeah, not the usual reaction to doing an awesome youth workshop, but I think nonetheless a real thing that can happen for a lot of our young people is that we serve our community so much. We love giving to people, and then we find ourselves burnt out and have to kind of go through the season of rest and recovery, and then try to not do it all again.
You know what I love about that there is because a lot of people that come on the podcast have done exactly the same thing. They give and give and give because that's what you're all heart-centered. But when you give, you actually forget about just enjoying life. Enjoying life. As you said before, I just wanted to, when I say enjoying life, I mean when you're always giving, you should forget to go. Actually, I can just be at home and just, I just said, just work in a retail job and just have fun and not worry about that there. So I guess my question for you is, how do you look after yourself? You do all these cool things here, which are amazing and inspirational and aspirational, but when you're like, oh, I just need to just chill. What is your chill factor?
Oh, it's such a hard question because I try to say I'm a chill girl, but I really take everything serious. And Gen Z's always say it's not that deep, but sometimes it is. And so I'd say my chill factor, to be very real, is playing Roblox. I'm a little gamer girl, grew up on the PlayStation with dad, and so gaming is my outset, but also, running, walking, anything outdoors to get away from the screens. Screen time is crazy is my outset, and hanging out with my family, quality time with my cat and my family is the go-to.
Oh, cats and games and outside. You can't go wrong with that thing. And amongst all this being busy and the burnout as well, you get a call or an email that says, "Hey, Leilani, by the way, you are nominated as the Young Local Hero of the Year."
Yes.
How does that? Let's go through that day.
Well, again, it's not a very normal process, but last year was a crazy year for me. I did a lot of things for a lot of people, but it was never for self-gain or to, show off in a certificate or anything. But it was really for my heart and service for the community and the people that I really care about, for our youth in Pacific especially. And so the way it came about was Latavia, again, had seen all the mahi I'd done, we'd had our girl talks and debriefs about everything. And she was like, "Hey, sis, I'd actually love to put you forward for this." And my reaction was no, no, don't do it because I didn't think I was worthy of it. But also, the recognition is not mine alone. It's my community's, and I've done it with other people. And so it was a hard one to accept in terms of the application going forward. But again, so grateful for people that recognize the hard work that our young people do, that so that we're not only rewarded but also recognized in all our efforts because yeah, like I said, we're just as valuable as anyone else, but often we go as unseen heroes in our communities. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's I think there's always a common theme that, with life experience you become more well-rounded. And that statement still holds true, no doubt. But there's nothing wrong with saying to young people, you also deserve recognition, even if you don't have as much life experience. And to me, that's always been something that I've tried to grapple with and challenge people on is that youth input and youth leadership is really needed in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And so to be recognised for that and have Latavia put me forward was a real honour and privilege.
It's also a testament to people recognizing the work that you do, because sometimes, as you said before, you don't go seeking these awards, but people recognize you and they acknowledge you. That's probably the greatest gift that even if you never get a prize or whatever, the fact that people acknowledge you and go, actually, you made a difference is what
Mm.
is what counts.
And I think even because I think I was one of the younger local hero of the year awards because I know they have a separate young New Zealander of the year category. Even just to be recognised as a local hero was huge. Because we do it for our communities and the people, but to know that my community was able to see me and maybe other young people in Palmerston North were also able to see me was really amazing to think, growing up in Auckland, now coming to Palmerston North and being recognised as a Manawatu Wanganui local hero was a huge privilege. And I know I didn't grow up there, but it's such an honour to serve communities that I know my grandparents and my parents served when they were growing up and all throughout their lives.
And as you said before, it's like a huge full circle moment there. Your whole family, your whole aiga just links back, which is really, really beautiful. And I also, there's the one saying that I really, really love, Leilani, that I use quite a bit. Is I read this many, many years ago, and the saying was, "Wisdom doesn't come from age, but it comes from experience." So whenever everyone talks about a young person, I'm like, yeah, cool. As someone that is 21 but has lived a crazy life of experience versus someone who's 50 who's just lives at home, the wisdom is very, very different. And when I bring that up, people are like, oh, I was like, actually, this is very true. Like, so, for example, a life of experience doesn't have to be how old you are. In your 21 years or 22 years or 23 years, your experiences have defined you. And I use that a lot when I speak to adults that work and that try and work in refugee communities. And I'm like, if you think about refugee communities, the experience that they've had is crazy. So there's no way you can negate age and wisdom. You can't. Those are two very different things there. And I want you to remember that as well. Leilani, when people say, actually, wait a minute, I'm just going to stop you right there because wisdom doesn't come from age, it comes from experience. Yeah.
Yes. And I think it's not until that people in those spaces allow young people to have that experience that we are able to gain experience. And it's a definite challenge in Aotearoa that okay, sure, we might not have the experience, but at least let us have the opportunity to gain it. If not governance, then where are the young people represented? Because if governance is supposed to be the highest level of an organization, then how are we ensuring that we're supporting our youth all throughout. And so that's a huge thing for me is yes, let us in the doors, not so we can take over, but so that we can learn from you because I've learned so much from intergenerational dialogue and learnings, but it was only until I was trusted or that they allowed me to enter those spaces and what a privilege it was that I was able to learn what I know now. And so it's a definite challenge and a call out to all our generations and an encouragement to our youth to not be afraid to step into spaces where we are underrepresented, but to first listen and observe from our elders to then lead.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great piece of advice there because both parties learn in that conversation. The elders learn from the young people, the young people learn from the elders. Where it goes wrong is when if each one of them thinks that they're right all the time, then that's never going to happen. And this is why, when you have a few people that do that, everyone's like, oh, everyone's like that there, and it's not. And it's really funny because, as you know, I've worked with young people for many, many years, and whenever I talk about bringing young people into anything that I do, People are so afraid. They're like, oh no, young people. I was like, hey, you don't even know. Most young people are actually amazing and they want to learn. They want to be there. They're going to ask great questions. They may challenge us. They challenge us from a place of growing and from knowledge and also to question things a little bit, but not from a place of malice. And I think that's what people forget about.
Yeah,
Um,
and that childlike innocence, hey, like sometimes we just don't know because we
yeah,
don't know. But also sometimes the things that we question are genuinely because we wonder if that's the right thing to do. And it's not, like you say, coming from a place of malice, but it's like, oh, is that the right thing or is it the right process? But often I feel like people can take offense to that, childlike enthusiasm and innocence. And I've had so many experiences where it's been like, no, 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 this is how it goes here. And I wish that there were people in places that held that safe space for children to ask those questions and have that curiosity. Because once you're molded and shaped into a, a well experienced, wise person, it can be very hard to not have the whole boxing, categorizing, and informing you into how things are because the way they are, and that's how they've always been. So yeah.
it's so funny to that there, and I love the way you used childlike because in my other world I work as a coach and in my coaching space I 100% always tell people to embrace a beginner's mindset. And one of my lines I always use is, if you're a 5 year old or talking to a 5 year old, what would you say? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, this is what we got to get back to. This is the way we got to get back to. And people pay thousands and thousands of dollars to do this, to go get trained. I was like, come on, guys. As you said before, if you just embrace it every single day, and the way you embrace it is by allowing young people into your world. Because when you allow young people into your world, you automatically start to think in that phase there. It's not good or bad, but you start questioning the world in a different way. So, and we're not saying it's good or bad. It's just how when you, and also conversely, young people around older people think about things differently as well, from a different perspective. It's all about those lenses that we wear, or we choose to wear.
Yes, agree.
So here you are, living in Palmerston North, living your best life. Doing all the awesome things that you do, and you get a job offer to come to Auckland and work in the space that you are. What is that like for you, and what is it like for you now in working at one of the big four in the tech/tech health convergence space?
Yes, I was very grateful to be a Passport ao Le Luminati Scholar recipient through their scholarship for Pacific. They also do a Māori scholarship. So if any of our Māori Pacific youth are looking for opportunities to get into corporate, that's one pathway you can go through. And so through my internship, I got the guaranteed graduate offer, which was really awesome. And so working in corporate, oh, it feels like a dream, but sometimes the dream hits reality and you realize that you have to work very hard and be a grown adult and do all the adult things to take care of yourself, but also thrive in spaces like the Big Four. And so it's unreal, it's surreal a lot. I went through the season where I was kind of like, this was my dream, but it feels so overwhelming, like, and started complaining and doing all the childish things. But then I realized, hang on, I actually worked really hard for this, and I always knew that I wanted to do big things, and this is, for the season, and it will definitely provide opportunities, and I have to go in with this mindset of like, it's an opportunity, make the most of it, and do as best as you can. So, yeah, still grappling with it. I'm only 2.5 months in. It feels really crazy, learning all the time. But yeah, like I said before, living the dreams that I know not only I had when I was young, but also my grandparents had when they moved from Samoa and left everyone and everything they knew behind in search of a better tomorrow. So it's a full circle moment. It's a family dream achieved. It's a migrant dream that I'm living. And so as much as it's got its challenges, I'm still very grateful for all the opportunities that I have because like you said at the beginning, the sacrifices that our parents made for us to be here today.
Yeah, and I love that because I love the fact that you're being honest about challenges and reality, and because life you could so easily say this is amazing, this is a dream come true. Yes, it's a dream come true, but all dreams have challenges. No, all dreams have nightmares, and nightmares have to be dealt with every day. Whatever that looks like.
Mm.
And I love that you said it there. The one thing that I haven't touched about, which I think is important, is your faith. How big is faith in your life? And you've mentioned it right through this whole podcast, a big acknowledgement to your faith. And the reason I want to bring that up is because we went through a time in life where people or like, oh, believing in, whatever God it is not okay. And there's I mean, and then I remember this really blatantly, and I saw a quick change when people were like, "Oh, if you said you're religious, people looked at you like, oh, you're a crazy weirdo." And now the shift is changing again. Um, yeah, tell us about the importance and impact that faith has in your life.
No, thank you, Patrish, for the space to talk about my faith. It's one that I've always grown up in. I grew up in church. My grandparents, or my dad's parents are deacons of the Whakasā in Palmerston North, and my mum's parents are the founding pastors of the Samoan AOG Church in Palmerston North. And so, from both sides of the family, not only my grandparents, but even before that, they were very involved in faith. Were God-serving people and God-fearing people, and so I knew growing up that faith was always not only integrated into my culture, but into my family, and was definitely um, gave us so many blessings throughout our journey to help me be where I am today. And so my parents also grew up in church. They went to Life Church in Auckland growing up. They were the OG choir conductors and leaders. And so they saw the OG choir come to life since Life Church, I think, was founded, and they originally started that up. So growing up, I was the choir baby, passed around, mocking the tenors for singing off key, new church right from the get-go, even when I was in mum's belly. And so my faith has played a huge part in my journey before me, and then growing up in Life Church, and then moving to Palmerston North and going to Cuthbert Church, and still going there now. It's been a huge part of that. But for me, my faith has always been in my relationship in God, first and foremost, not in the church that I go to or the religious practices that we say we do. It's always been that relationship with God, and that's been key because I saw my grandparents and parents being prayer warriors from the get-go, and how even though things don't look like they're working out in the natural and the supernatural, God can make things possible. And so, yeah, definitely in this past season, I've been a lot more declarative, open and honest, and trying to be more confident in my journey with God. I've always loved God and had a relationship with Him. But I think this is, like you say, there's a real revival and a revolution coming around the world that we're seeing, where people are speaking more outwardly in their faith, and it's awesome to see. My parents recently they're doing a School of Faith course, which is really cool, and that's seen them activate their faith in that, going to church is one thing, but sharing the gospel and the good news is another. And so if we're going to heaven, why go alone when we could go with a whole bunch of people and make an impact along the way? So that's inspired me to do the same, and always be kind and loving to people because God loved us first and God is love. So it's a huge part of my journey. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for God's blessings and favors. And I'm so grateful to have Him in my life, and also to know Him, but also have family that have inspired me to keep on that journey because it's not easy, especially in this time in this climate. But when we stand firm on faith, it makes things all the more easier because we know that in our weakness, He is strong. So it's been awesome. But it's been cool to even explain it on this podcast too, because it's the first time that someone's asked me so openly about it. So thank you so much.
No, no worries, I think it's important that that people will come with everything in our lives, and people only see small parts of us, but the reason I speak about faith is because a lot of people that I talk to, I follow, I listen to, always speak about, we do all these crazy course and things, but the one thing that we all do, whatever faith it is, whether it's Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, whatever, it doesn't actually matter, is they ground themselves with faith, and every single one of them acknowledges that they wouldn't be where they were if it wasn't for faith, whatever their faith is. And I think it's important for people to realize that um, you don't have to go to church all the time to have faith. Faith, as you said before, it's not about the religious practice. It's about your conversation, your belief, and your blessings and your thankfulness. Every day you thank God, you thank whoever you worship. So thank you for sharing that because it's a whole part of you.
Mm.
Um, one thing that I have loved, and I'm smiling here, is you've used this word quite a lot this evening. The word season. We've used the word season quite a bit. Let's talk us through that. Is that something that's in your vernacular, or is that something you've picked up and you're like, actually, I'm going to use it all the time because it's really cool.
I feel like if I was Miss Samoan, it's my diplomatic answer to like making sure that I don't sound like I'm fixed or grounded and things, but like, oh, it's always for a season. But I think I picked it up from Latavia, honestly. Latavia is such an inspo to me and a big sister. And she kind of inspired me in thinking of things for a season because I think when we think of things like or even as an era, seasonal era, but um I think when we think of things not as a season, we kind of get stuck down in the idea that this is our forever. And for me, uni was a season, school was a season, governance was a season. But seasons don't necessarily end, but they definitely do come back. And so it's never to close the door, but just to leave the door open. And so I don't know, I think it's my like corporate slash diplomatic speak coming through. But it's always been like I've been quite intentional in how I see my seasons and how I serve and how I show up in seasons because my resting season, I was I was literally turned off and living the normal life. But this season's a bit of a grind season, if I'm honest. And so I think it's a terminology that helps me navigate things with grace and love because it doesn't always last forever. Time is precious and opportunities are precious as well. But it doesn't mean that seasons can't come back and it can't be for another time. It might be the right place, right time in another, yeah, in another season. There we go again.
I love it, and I love it, and I'm smiling because I've also been recently using the word season in my conversations with a whole lot of different people. And the reason why I like it is exactly what you said. The season, when you talk about seasons, seasons come and go. So when you're going through a tough time, it's a reminder that hey, this is just going to pass. But also a reminder when things are going well, you can't take it for granted as well because seasons it's not always summer. Winter's going to come and autumn's going to come, and you've got to ride that wave there. So yeah, so this is why I smile because I also use it quite a bit in my with my team, and they're always like, "Why are you saying this all the time? We're tired of you." And I was like, "Hey guys, it's great words. You're gonna write that down sometime." So
Oh, for sure. I'm just grateful I haven't said low-hanging fruit, flag this, or something corporate. So no,
yeah,
season my diplomatic word for tonight.
well, for just for tonight, just for tonight. Oh, beautiful. Leilani, we've been speaking for just over an hour. I've obviously touched on the sides of the world that I know about you, but is there sides that you like to talk about that you like to share that you go, actually, there's a part of me that is really different that's not out there for people to see.
Yeah, I think a different part of me is the friendships that I have. We talked about going to St. Cuthbert's and growing up in Manurewa. I always honored my family and my village behind me, but I think growing up in those environments and moving around, but also being in quite competitive environments and working quite hard myself, friendships was always a hope and a wish, but it wasn't always a reality. And it was quite hard growing up with friends that didn't always have my back or were friends but were often jealous of my achievements or my pathways or people that were for a season. And so I think it's just a topic to touch on for tonight because often people look at successful young people and go, oh, you have it all. Like, you work hard, you got all the achievements, you're doing the dream job, dream life. But there are also things that we don't have. And for me, a real challenge has been friendships. Not to say that I don't have friends now, I have amazing friends, but it's taken a long time to come out of competitive environments or educational settings where, I've always been focused on the grind or people have had a certain social agenda or wanted to do things, and that wasn't always my go. And so, yeah, I'm really grateful for the friends I have now, but don't look at me like I have the whole village behind me and I have everyone that I want. There are definitely things that I don't have, and so I'm very grateful this year to have friends in Auckland, growing up in Auckland and coming back to Auckland. There's lots of young people here. Palmy wasn't so much, but I was very grateful to have friends there too. And so I've learned that a smaller circle is a better circle in terms of having more close-knit friends that you can go to rather than a whole bunch of friends that you might not be as close to. And that's probably something that took time and maturity and lots of experience and learnings. But it's awesome to know that while I only have a few close friends, that I have many people that see my work and see my effort and look up to me when I hope that they just see me as another friend. So that's probably something that I wanted to share that maybe not many people would know. Not to say that I'm lonely, but that I have many amazing friends now, but it was a definite journey along the way.
I thank you for sharing. I think that's really important that you've raised that there because, as you said before, people see you, but through the grind, there's things I've got to get sacrificed, you know. And I'm going to go back to a word that you used before, you know, a normal life, normal, because your will is not the norm in what you're doing, but it was the norm for you because you were, this is what I wanted to get to. But I'm just trying to picture and think about, you know, here you are trying to do all these things here, and some of your peers of the similar age have a whole different thing going on. It's not good or bad. And they were going, hey, what's Leilani up to? And you're like, hey, this is not my vibe. And as a young person, you know, whether we like it or not, young people judge very quickly, and this is just life. So thank you for sharing that, because you know at times it could be lonely. Yes, you've got your family, you've got your village. And sometimes you go, man, I just wish I had a friend who'd just be on this pathway. And friends come and go. And when I reflect back when I went to university, this is another teachable moment for me. Was when I went to university, I had all these people around me. Like it was amazing in my first year. And I still remember a fourth year student came to me and pulled me aside and said, hey, Prajesh, he took me up to the balcony. I was like, you see all these people here? He goes, in that group, only two of them are your real friends, and you will see who they are the day that you graduate. And I was like, yeah, whatever. There's 40 people there. What are you talking about? As a naive 17-year-old or 18-year-old. But that has always stood in my mind, because when I graduated, I those words really came back. You know, when the chips are down, who is actually there for you? And that
Yeah.
really, and I love what you said. It's about quality, not about quantity.
Yeah, and I think also on reflection, it came back to like when I finished university, I was like, oh, I actually need to make time and investing to make friends because it's one thing to want friends, but it's another thing to go out and be friendly, which my dad always says. And so I think to any young people, you know, I thought that growing up it was better to have real friends than fake friends. And sometimes while that holds true, I think it limited my opportunity to make friends, just friends, regardless of whether they were real or fake. And so never forget the effort in filling your own cup by reaching out to other people too that share similar interests and things, because sometimes we can get so caught up in the grind and then we bring our communities with us, but then we look around us and we look to friends or family and it's people that we need to invest time into as well, to also ensure that we fill our cup, and that they can be there to support us along the way.
That's so true. Yeah, as you said, it's also requires effort. You don't just wake up one morning and go, you can be my friend. Okay, cool. Life doesn't work like that there. There's no seasons that do that there. Oh, beautiful. I really love that. I love that share. This is really, really fantastic. Anything else that you'd like to add again, you know, that we haven't covered? I think we've covered quite a bit, and I'm pretty sure we can keep talking forever and ever and ever, because you're so inspirational and aspirational. I guess I guess the question I have for you is, what's next on your horizon for you for the next season?
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Honestly, I'm always looking to the next thing. Not that that's a bad thing, but I think you grow up, you know, what's the next biggest thing? Oh, university. Oh, okay. And then it's getting a job. And then you get to the job and you're like, oh, I'm a big adult. There's lots of things to do. And so I think the thing for me now is to be settled, at least in the physical sense of getting used to the job, working a 9 to 5, being a corporate girl. No doubt that I've had aspirations along the way already to travel overseas and do amazing things and international opportunities. But for now, for this season at least, it's just to settle. I've always been on the go. I've always been doing multiple things, but for this season at least, I just want to make sure that I've got all my things in order and that I can really be present in opportunities that I'm in. Because often I guess multitasking or trying to do multiple things at once can get quite hard, and especially when you get a full-time job and become an adult, unfortunately it gets harder to do those things because you've also got to take care of yourself and other people. So for this season at least, it's to settle. I've still got things going on in the background where I'm serving my communities, or trying to make sure that I'm a normal 22-year-old girl and not just head on and head down and thumbs up or whatever the saying is. But yeah, I think to settle, but also just to grow. It's always been a growing season coming back to Auckland, growing in opportunities, growing in friendships and in relationships, and finding out what who Leilani is as a young adult. Because, you know, I spend all this time investing into the next best thing, into whatever's coming next, but then I haven't had the time to necessarily find out what I like because I now live with a homestay family and it's really amazing, but that means that I have to make my own decisions. And so I don't have my mum or dad telling me what to do, but I have me to choose, to look after and to love. And so that's a huge season as well. So I think it's settling, growing, and just living it up as best as I can.
Amazing. Time, there's always a saying that it's in the pause that things grow. And, this is, you might not be growing this way, but you will grow in a different way, which is really beautiful. Leilani,
Yes.
you've shared so many nuggets of wisdom today, but as you probably know, our podcast is called Baskets of Knowledge, and every week we invite our guests to share a piece of knowledge to put into our kits and our baskets. What piece of knowledge would you like to share for myself, Tanya, and our listeners?
Oh, wow. What piece of knowledge I would share? I think we've been talking a lot about opportunities and rest and pauses and seasons. Um, but I guess the basket of knowledge that I'd love to share is that in all of the seasons that we find ourselves in, is to never forget to look back, not just sort of where we came from, but also where our parents and our grandparents came from and where our roots are. It's always been a part of my journey that I acknowledge the intergenerational sacrifices and love that has been invested into me and the shoulders that I stand on to be where I am, but also to look now into the present and where we're at and take it all in, but also to look to the future and in that finding gratitude and opportunities and where we're at the moment in my season, it's hard to be living the dream and also going through challenges, but when I look around me to the past, present, and future, I'm reminded of who I am, where I came from, who I came from, and that the future is limitless because of who I have around me. And so might not be a piece of wisdom for you, Prajesh, because you're very wise and
I don't know about that.
but I think it's always a good reminder to be reminded that we're not solely defined by the present, but we've got so much behind us and so much going for us that we're in the right place, regardless of if it feels right at this time. I mean that if not, we can always grow from it and learn things to take on into the future. And so that's my little piece of wisdom that's come from my experience.
I love it because it covers quite a bit there. In there, you speak about thinking about where you've come from. What does it actually mean? What are the sacrifices that have been put in place for you to be where you are? But also, as you think about that, where you are right now, you are forging the path for someone else. So someone's going to look back and go, "Hey, Leilani forged this path for me," in whatever that looked like. And but the key word that you used there was one that I don't think many of us do very often is gratitude. Just taking pause to be thankful, to whether it's your whānau, your friends, to your faith, even to yourself, and this is the one thing we never do. We never thank ourselves. So, hey, actually, hey, body, amazing. Thank you for getting to where we are. And really, it sounds very strange when you say that, but actually, we never do that there. We would thank a car or an amazing thing to get you where you are, but your body is, you have one body. You have one body. So, yeah, that's a really beautiful piece of wisdom there and a great reminder for me as well. So thank you for that there. Beautiful, Leilani. Any last words before we say goodbye tonight?
Oh, I would just like to thank you, Prajesh, for your time and your input and the vision that you've brought to reality, both you and Tane. I know you guys have put in a lot of hard work behind the scenes throughout many years. I've tuned into a few episodes doing my due diligence, my research, and I've honestly been so blown away. I knew that I was in trouble when I saw Ronan's episode and I saw how easily you navigated throughout his journey and asked questions on the fly or whether you prepared them and how off guard it caught him because he kept going, "Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question." And I thought, oh dear, I'm in for the same run. So you have such a talent and a natural ability to hold a safe space for our young people and also people that have grown up and become more experienced. But it's such an honor and also a cool thing to watch someone in their craft do what they love and also create spaces for people to talk about what they love. So thank you for all your mahi, you and your team, all the input and the impact that you have on our young people and sharing the stories that I live and many other people live. It's such an important thing to do, and podcasts are only one way of making an impact, but it's so awesome to see you at work and to be a part of the journey. So thank you so much for having me and for everything you do. Just wanted to honor you and Tane and for everything you do. We see you, we honor you, and we just thank you in this time. So thank you.
That's very kind. If my emotions could just fly out, it'd be amazing. But you can't on the podcast. But I want to, for yourself and for listeners out there, this is a privilege. This is an honor. A lot of people say to me, "Why do you do this? You don't get money from it." Me and my time, like, what do? We don't get money. We don't get anything. There's nothing. There's nothing tangible. I was like, it's not about being tangible. It's about the story that everyone has. And, we've been very lucky. Tonight, I've learned so much about you as a human being. And when I started the podcast, I spoke about you and all the things that you do. And there's a reason, because you are creating this impact. And it's sad if this impact is not shared with the world, one story at a time. So thank you. It's my privilege. All listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to us today. But again, a big, big thank you, a big mihi, a big thank you to Leilani for sharing her story today, for sharing parts of her life that she hasn't shared before openly, and for just being unapologetically you and enjoying this season of this podcast show, which has been great. For those of you that have been listening in, hopefully you have found this podcast interesting, informative, and educational, also a bit funny, as maybe. And if you haven't found something useful, then go back and listen again, because you probably fell asleep on the bus. So go back and listen again. Till next time, take it easy, keep smiling, and most important of all, don't forget to put something into your basket of knowledge. Thanks, time. Take it, everybody. Peace. Bye.